So really excited to chat with everybody because this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. Kenny, it makes me smile that I get to see you because I got to sit next to you at the dinner that he was talking about. So just a little bit about me and where I come from. I have a mix of like big tech as well as some startups. So I was at Cisco for 13 years, and then I've been at companies like Adobe and AppLovin and Viavi Solutions, and then really heavy in the startup area around Matterport and Dremio and Whirl. I was very lucky to be part of taking Matterport public and through multiple acquisitions as well. So I see myself as somebody who really likes focusing on go to market and demand and field marketing, digital marketing. I joke a little bit like, I am not your brand person, and I am definitely not your comms person. And I think when you look at this presentation, you'll giggle a little bit because this presentation isn't like going to be all pretty with a bunch of slides. It's really going to be about like the insights and the data itself, because that's really what I think about. And that's usually how I'm thinking about in terms of how you're really driving and making impact. Right now, I work for Samba Nova, and I love where I'm working right now. And especially, it's really about transforming AI around efficiency and security and sovereignty. And it's really about empowering developers, enterprise, governments, data centers to really unlock their AI infrastructure. And it's from chips all the way to into actually the LMs and the solutions themselves. So we offer that end-to-end solution. And what's really exciting about it is the whole domain sovereignty and being able to really think about being able to do it from a Samba managed perspective, where you're actually able to have your own domain. So think about Japan, and you can think about being able to run everything within that country, right? And a lot of things that are happening in the world right now, you really want to think about that privacy and that security, right? And so I'm very passionate about, being part of AI and being part of this community and learning a lot about what's possible. Of course, my lens around it is very much focused as it relates to revenue marketing. So, what drives me? And I would say the thing that really drives me is I want everybody to win. I really want, it's not about me winning. It's about everybody winning. And that's really a lot of what's changed as we think about in 2020 to where we are now. It's about how marketing and sales and product are aligned to really grow revenue, right? And how we do that together. Right. And before, I think it was a lot of silos in terms of, oh, this team does that, and this team does this, and this team does that. It's really now around about how do we all do this together? And AI is reshaping how we do that. And it's an opportunity for us in terms of to be smarter, quicker, and personalize it. And those are things that are just kind of exploding right now in the world of AI. And the reason I'm here is I'm all for it. I'm here to learn, and I think that's one thing that AI is going to be around so much that it's about learning and it's about evolving and just taking ownership of that learning. So when I think about what's changed in revenue marketing, and for many years I'd be like, no, it hasn't changed. It's really about how you drive revenue. Right now, it's changed, and it's changed in a big way. AI isn't a feature; it's a forcing function for change. It's not a feature, guys. It's around how we change and how we look at things differently. CMOs, we need to own pipeline. It's not just about brand. It's not about MQLs. It's not about leads. We need to own pipeline, right? We need to actually own a number. And we really need to be part of that go-to-market conversation. And CMO superpowers right now is really translating is in terms of the signals around what's relating to go-to-market, the overall strategy, and partnering heavily with sales. Sales closes all deals. Of course, they're closing the deals, but we need to help them. We need to give them the insights and the information. So that leads to, okay, so let's talk about the old playbook versus today's playbook. In 2020, it was around growth at all cost. It was around gated content and just generating leads. It was around just like you're scoring on volume, right? Today is not about any of those things. It's all about efficient, profitable growth. And I'll go into that a little bit more. And I'll go into why I don't believe in ungated content. But that to me, it's really around becoming a trust center, right? And like I think about it myself. I know as a marketer, if I put my name somewhere, I'm going to be spammed, left and right. And I don't want that. So I don't want people that I'm dealing with or I'm building relationships to not want to put their name in, right? And it's about how do I show pipeline contribution? It's about showing CAC. It's about showing payback to revenue. It's about understanding your buyer's journey. And it's embedding AI across all of the go-to-market and insights. And then instead of silos that I was talking about before, briefly, we also need to think about that unified, full funnel revenue. And what does that mean? So I'm going to give some examples in a bit, but I want to focus a little bit on why is it really hard right now for a lot of people to change? Because I feel like a lot of folks are still doing leads and MQLs. And I think a lot of that is because of the executive board pressure that is out there. They have to report something, right? They have to show something. Kenny, you and I talked a bit about like, hey, like who's sourcing, attribution, all of that stuff. And a lot of the tools and stuff that were there, they're telling us we need to do it one way versus another. And there's just so much pressure right now on marketing around how we do it. I would also say that brand is even more important than ever because it's all about trust. So then I think what happens for a lot of CMOs right now is they don't know how to do it. And I'll tell you, I spend probably 70% of my time, even where I am now, helping people understand how to do things. It's not the data around it, it's around how you actually can do it, right? And what are the things that you look at? And I think it's also really important when you think about the how is when you set it up. It's very hard for a CMO to come into an organization and that's done it for a long time a certain way and change that. So it's really important when you first walk in the door to get everybody to understand this is how we need to measure things and to make that shift is very hard for a lot of folks. So it's about setting it up in the very beginning. So why doesn't it work? And let's just talk about leads and MQL. Leads and MQL, they go against the whole principle of efficient, profitable growth, right? Basically, what leads and MQ do is talking about volume, right? How can you get as much volume as you possibly can? Where efficient, profitable growth is all about getting the right folks. And again, I'm going to lean into that a little bit more. But leads and MQL is all around a volume. It's all about a math story. When we talk about gated content, there's two things you need to think about it. A lot of people like gated content because get those leads. I get that. But think about that lead. Is that lead really something that that matters? Or is it really just somebody gave you their information because they wanted a piece of paper or they wanted that PDF? Right? It's really more about your brand though, too. It's about thought leadership. You want them coming to your site and you can still see who's coming to your site. You can see the companies. AI provides that intent data for you already. So you don't actually need them to actually, fill out a form because you already know who they are. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm doing differently with AI today. Right now, we've got personalization and automated BDR motion. So I really want to think about the sales team and really how do I make the best use of their times? You'll see as one of my examples, we're using AI and personalizing anything that's not an inbound request, a demo request or contact us. I want to be careful about my sales team's time and see if I can automate meetings on their calendar that's quality versus just asking them to play that traditional BDR role and follow up on this huge volume of leads. Again, I want to think about personalized journeys that I can do for them to try to make it easier for sales and make it easier for the customer to get that right experience. On the persona research, when I'm talking about different target accounts, there's so much information I can get about the company and that target account before I even actually reach out to them now because of AI. And I can actually get all the predictive and buying signals and intent scoring without having to pay a lot of money at 6sense and Demandbase and some of those other tools out there. There's a lot of stuff that I can get right now without having to do that with using AI. There's first draft of content development. I will say I'm not somebody that believes that I believe there's too much content out there, and I think AI actually makes it extremely easy. But I think it's a great thing for first drafts. But I think I think content is moving to a place where it really must matter. It really needs to be something that really has quality in it. And as that quality is going to get more and more, and that human element is going to be even more important. There's all around the image and the graphics. And then it's about building these enablement journeys with the sales organization. And how do we create, hey, I'll contact them then, you contact them here. Here's the conversations we should be having. Here's the actual scripts you can use. How do we enable that to go faster because we know who they are? So 2 examples that I'm doing. I talk about the target account workflow powered by AI. So, what's my new process? Instead of getting a list of contacts and plugging it into a tool and having them tell me what's happening because I've now put triggers on my site and put scripts in different places so I can figure it out. Now, what the new process is I can actually get the intent data from these accounts. I can then identify the personas that I'm going to be reaching out to. I can help my BDR team and sales folks around messages that it's going to resonate with them. And then, as I was saying earlier, we can automate journeys for them. So that way it's easier for the customer to get put on sales calendar without sales having to, go through and go after them on their own. And then on the other side, there's also this, like I just talking about the automated customer journey. I break it out into three tiers. Tier one is contact us and demo requests. Those go to sales directly because those are the folks that obviously are very interested in having the right conversation with sales. I want to make sure that those get qualified, they're the right persona, and they get over to sales right away. But people who sign up for SaaS, 9 out of 10 times, they're not ready for sales. Even if they're the right persona, they're probably not ready for sales. So how do I get them using the product? How do I get them trying some of our use cases and then do a communication to them after they've done one or two to then ask if they want to have a conversation with sales? And then I think about our event MQLs or other type of MQLs that we get because of interactions with other folks. Unless they've done some type of activity and raised their hand, I want to be thoughtful about what I'm throwing over to sales for them to spend their time on. So I'm again waiting for some type of signal that they're raising their hand. So to me, everything that I'm giving to sales right now is about hand raising. They have hand raised and spoken that they want to talk to sales. And I'm measuring that. So I want to circle back on what efficient, profitable growth means, because I think it's a way of how you're looking at your data differently. It's growth that's measurable, aligned, and profitable for the business. Marketing takes a pipeline number and a percentage of revenue impact. So the things you got to look at is your cost per pipeline. And I put in benchmarks here just so you have them, like what's efficient? For every dollar you spend, you want to minimum get $5 back or, up to 10, or elite is, said to be over 1 to 10. I will say, I hear people say 13 or 14 right now too for cost per opportunity. So it's really industry based. And then cost per close one, right? Thinking about how much money you're spending on marketing and then what that actually turns in terms of actual close one revenue. Think about that. Think about reporting on that versus reporting on MQLs or leads. Which one has a bigger impact to the business? It's pretty clear, right? So I thought I would just kind of say out like the different things that I would measure. So the ones in green are the ones I already talk about. But these are the types of things that I would want to report on, which is what's our overall pipeline and how is it sourced and influenced by marketing? The revenue contribution of closed ones, marketing source versus influence split. What's our customer acquisition cost? What's our CAC payback period? And then the ones that I just talked about. And then the other piece is around sales velocity. My belief is marketing owns pipeline. We need to do a much better job of seeing what's happening as it relates to the pipeline and the quality of that pipeline. And sales owns the velocity of that pipeline. How does that pipeline move across the journey to close one? So I think about what do I do Sunday night? So here's the scorecard. And I wanted to give you guys something so you could actually see. This is what I do every Sunday night. Every Sunday night, I am sending out a communication to the sales organization and their leaders, as well as my CMO, of week over week pipeline signals. How many inbound requests? How many sales qualified meetings? What's coming with their target accounts? What new intent data do I have? And then if we've had a big event, how do I partner with the sales lead on site to understand, okay, from that event, what one-on-one meetings did we have? Who's the owner of those conversations? What's the status and next steps? And then we also then do a monthly reporting on all of our automated BDRs and outbound BDRs that we're doing and what's actually working and what's the right percentages around that. And then I'm also then providing a week over week. So this is just, how I think about it, but everybody sets up their sales stages differently, right? So you have to map this to your own sales stage and your own business. And for those who want to, meet sometime and I can talk about like what might make sense for you based on your business, I'm happy to do that. But for us, it's really goes as new pipeline is stage 0, but there's no money assigned. So it's actually really pre-pipeline. It's actually not qualified as pipeline yet. But it's basically so we have signal that sales says, hey, this is accepted, but it's not quite pipeline yet. Sales stage 1 means it's qualified, but now we have a number associated. Stage 2 is when things start to really matter. Because not what we're saying as relates to stage 2 is that it's not only is it quality pipeline, but it has a higher propensity to get to close 1. And then you're scoping out what the actual POC would look like. And then you're also then going into contract negotiations and close 1. And what I'm talking about in terms of week over week shifts is I'm actually looking at, okay, across all of the pipelines. So, and I'm doing it this way is like, how much pipeline did I have remaining in Q1? How much pipeline did I have remaining in Q2? And let's talk about the new pipeline, because this is going to give me insights of, okay, how many of the deals of my first quarter are actually going to close in Q3, and how much money I have left on pipeline that I think is actually going to be able to forecast out some of the growth that I'm going to see. What I'm starting to see is, depending on your deal velocity, you're going to start to have good insights around, okay, if I want Q4 to be successful, I need to have 4x of my pipeline now, right? So this is how you're starting to see some of that information. And then I also think it's important to actually really track out the new pipeline deals that come in, so you have an understanding around what's coming in week over week. Because one thing you also want to know is, are you week over week generating new pipeline? They might sit in stage 0 and stage 1 for a while. That's fine. But you got to know that it's there, and you got to know that it's moving. Then on the last thing is a monthly review on stage 6, which is close loss. You want to have clear reason codes around what that is. You want to know what sales stages it ended at, because you want to know if maybe the issue honestly is it got qualified and maybe it shouldn't have been qualified, right? So you need to learn from that. What product insights do we have? This is an opportunity to go back to the product organization and says, you know what? Our customers are asking for this. Why aren't we able to deliver on X, Y, and Z? I would be able to get 5 more deals through if these features existed. Or the pricing on this isn't going to work for us. We need to think about new packaging or promotions. Competitor insights. Think about your competitors. Then there's the seller insights. So what is the sales team? What is it that they want? So, I wanted to provide you guys with a scorecard so you can see what actually I do every Sunday night, because it really does help provide insights. And one thing it's also helpful for the sales organization is for them to get a visibility and feedback on what's working as well from the marketing side. Because part of it is, as I also need to take those insights and maybe shift some of the things that I'm doing too. So this really is kind of the last slide, which is, hopefully some of this information here will help you think about how you might want to shift some of your org model as it relates to how you're looking at revenue.